So with more and more people coming to cannabis to try it for the first time, and now so many of us are able to expand our palates because we've got more than the one thing that our plug had for us. What do you recommend, Kevin, as to how the newcomers can maybe like build a flight or try a wide range of cannabis so that they can find out what they like in a pretty efficient way? Because it's expensive to experiment with cannabis, and similarly, those of us who have been in cannabis for years and years, we're getting access to new things. So how would you recommend somebody who's new to it or wants to expand their palate to do so in a way where they can reach and be efficient?
That's a good question, because there's so many choices that it becomes almost overwhelming for the average individual to really determine where to begin, where they like, why even like it. And what I did is I tried to neck down 42,000 terpenes. So there's 42,000 different terpenes we basically had to create the smell components. And so no one alive could remember all of this, and no one would be able to differentiate. And so I said, from all the years of distributing cannabis, that really it breaks down into 4 fundamental groups: earth, fuel, floral, and fruit. And those basically are very simple terms, but it allows you to see the different terp profiles. And I was challenged on this by some researchers about where did you come up with this? And I said, it's just intuition for me. And they challenged it scientifically, and really it was accurate, but it basically broke down into, you have a fruit and a fuel, and underneath fuel is earth, and underneath fruit is floral. So you can basically break down 42,000 terpenes into 2 major groups in cannabis, fruit and fuel, and then below fuel is earth, and below fruit is floral. So it was really accurate scientifically, which was interesting because for me it was intuition, but for the scientists they wanted to see if this hypothesis was correct, and it was. And the importance of it is that it allows you to be able to break it up into 4 groups. And they each have some very specific type effects. Fruits are basically uplifting, florals are more introspective, earth is more sedative, gas is very aggressive. And so those type of sensations you experience really are pretty dominant, even if the cannabinoid levels fluctuate and some of the ratios fluctuate. So the terp doesn't determine the entire effect and high, but it definitely is a predicator of it. And what it does, it allows individuals to say, okay, I want to try things that are introspective. And you would go then through floral categories, things that had floral smells, exotics. And then you would look through those for the things that worked for you. And if you wanted uplifting, then we would go into citrus tones, lemons, limes, grapefruits, things that really spark up your eyes and open you up. And if we wanted to have a radical change in effect of what we're doing, we would go into gas. And that's basically what's trendy now. It's all the OGs, the sours, where you have a very heavy myrcene pinene base that just, and there's other subtleties that make this gaseous effect, but it's very powerful. And for people who want that, that's individuals who need pain relief primarily, and a radical change of tone. And then earth is stuff that was old school, Bubba Kush, the Hindu Kushes, where the potencies were around really 11 to 13. They're really around high potency. But you felt it really well because it allowed you to have a very beautiful, relaxing body high, but without too much mental raciness. And so you're able as a consumer, if you can take a look at this, it says, hey, what am I seeking? And I want to have what kind of effects? And for most people, they would like to have a couple different choices. And so what we say is, then you get into the 4 different categories, a fuel, an earth, a floral, and a fruit, and then you go and consume them throughout the day in the right sequence, where you would consume the things that had the most heavy impact when you had the least amount of mental effort and you weren't driving, and you were using stuff that was very open and light while you were using your creativity. So typically fruits in the morning, floral after that, so that you're introspective as you move through. You can get into earth in the later afternoon because it's relaxing but it's not devastating, and then you can get into heavy fuels in the evening where they just basically sit you down and really let you change your tone completely. And in those 4 categories, you'll be able to start. I tell people get a notebook, and you just take a look, and if you can take a look at some of the ones that you really like, and you can look at the chemotype profiles, which is really the overall cannabinoids and the ratios, you'll start to find certain ones that let you know, hey, I like a lot of THC because I want that euphoria, but I want enough CBD to make it to where it's not edgy. And you'll start to see these ratios, and you'll start to see these relationships. And it'll start to let you take a look at, because this is all documented now. When you're selling cannabis, all this information is present. So you could go into a modern store, and if they databased it correctly, you'd be able to say, what I'm looking for is something in this type of basic profile with ratios like this, and you'd be able to get into a little subset of things that would be within that. And then you would try those, because no lab report is you. It doesn't make a difference. You're your own lab report, and every single number could line up across the board and it's still not the one you like, but it lets you exit off the list, and it starts to make it a little simpler though, because otherwise you're looking at 400 samples, not 4, and you want to be able to make this easier and more affordable. And so for me, the way I recommend it is to break it up in this fashion and just journal it, and try to use a repeatable process, meaning the way you consume it. So you have to basically set the same smoking situation to evaluate. So if you want to evaluate your morning smoke, you need to basically smoke it at your house while you're drinking coffee in the morning, like that, every day the same. Otherwise, you're comparing apples to oranges, not the other way around. And that changes how you affect the high. So if I'm in a bad mood and I consume it, and I'm in a good mood and I consume it, then it's really, you're putting a huge influence on the effect itself. And so when you're trying to find out what works for you, and really what are the varieties that really satisfy, once you can really put it into a clear context, now what you have is the ability to say, that's what I like, I don't need to look anymore. Yes, I can try new things when it's convenient, but I want to buy an ounce of that, and I want to buy an ounce of that, and that'll last me the next 3 weeks. And hopefully when you're talking to the people you're buying it from, you're asking them, are these farms solvent? Do you think they're going to be in business in 3 weeks? And that way what it does is it lets you get a repeatability. Otherwise you have to keep repeating this process. But you can make it very simple, and you don't have to know the complexities. You don't have to be able to memorize the cannabinoids. It's not important that you know every terpene by heart and what they do. That's wonderful, but that's for aficionados on a very introspective, scientific type vision. Users just need to say, I like it or I don't like it. It's that simple. And did it work or did it not work? Was it affordable? Was it not affordable? And then you can get into the emotional components of, did the farm produce it in a manner that I can agree with, meaning, you know, are they really environmentally conscious? Do they have a real concern for the product? And all those factors weave in. But first, make it simple on what kind of effect you're seeking, then log to find out what cannabinoid levels seem to be comfortable for you and what ratios, and pretty soon you have a good guidebook on what to do.
Right on, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right on.